Malik Monk of the Kings, I mean, sensational. I went back and watched his recent game here where he had 39 points. Just I think it was like a week or two ago, and I mean, 35 of the 39 came after halftime, which is just like, I mean, that just goes to show you how much.
Not only that, he had. I only remember this because I tweeted about it, but he had 4 points with 2 minutes and 40 seconds remaining in the third quarter.
Yeah,
and he scored 35. I think he scored 11 to close out the third, and then 18 in the fourth, and then 6 in OT, and finished with 39. It's like, that's Malik Monk.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, crazy.
Just insane. So, I mean, he's scoring a little bit more than Norman right now. He's at actually just under 16 a game. Efficiency marks are also very strong. I mean, 45 from the field, 37 from three, 81 from the line. So he's a little bit lower from three and from two, but I mean, overall, still very strong marks. And he hasn't started a game this season. I mean, he's a pure sixth man. He doesn't start any games, but he plays a lot of minutes. He closes games, just like we saw the other night in that huge outburst, fourth quarter OT. He really demonstrated his value in clutch moments. And I think the big turning point for Malik, he's always been a great scorer, even back in Charlotte where he started his career. That's been his calling card. But now he kind of adds another dimension to his game, which is the playmaking, the passing, the just getting his teammates involved. He's up to 5.3 assists per game this season. He is at a career high assist percentage. So this is almost like the inverse of Norman Powell. Norman is like, hey, pure scorer through and through. Malik comes in, hey, I can score with the best of them, but I can also run pick and rolls. I can hit the roll man. I can hit these skip passes to three-point shooters. He has a very high usage rate. So he's like almost like a point guard sometimes, like a pure point guard as opposed to like an off-ball scorer. 27 or just under 27 as far as the usage rate, which is a career high for him. So he's assuming a greater share of offensive possessions than he has in any other time in his career with the Lakers, with the Hornets, even last season with the Kings. Like his role has just grown bigger as time has gone on. So I think that's the really big factor for him that comes into play as far as his candidacy here. He brings the scoring, but he also brings another dimension. So even though, the Kings aren't quite as good as the Clippers this season, Malik has been just as important to this team, maybe even a little more important, because he is establishing these possessions to where he is running the offense. He is taking in that game where we just talked about where he scored 39 points. Fox did not play in that game. So Malik had to come in and assume that role for the team, which is basically a starter playing 35 plus minutes in the game in a clutch moment against a very good team and helping everybody get involved and helping them to victory. So that's his case. I'd probably have him right there with Norman. The two of them have just been sensational. And even though, the efficiency isn't quite there, you can give him a pass for that because he has been passing so well to all his teammates and keeping them involved here. So that's what I've seen so far from him. And he's just gotten better every year of his career. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. Brett, what have you seen so far from Malik? And, where do you have him here in this kind of hierarchy of six men?
Oh, I think I have him number one. Yeah, I mean, I think I've said this many times. I think he's the best bench player in the NBA. I felt that way last year as well. Even though he didn't win sixth man of the year, I was like, I do think he's like the best player that comes off the bench in the NBA, the best reserve, and I definitely still feel that way. And I think this season he's done enough to really warrant winning that award. Barring some drastic change, like he's going to be my favorite to win it. I'm glad you mentioned the playmaking. That's a huge part of it. Like that's something that I think we saw start to emerge that season in LA when he really kind of broke out. And then last season it was legit, and it's actually, gone up even more this season. And he can do it in so many ways. Like you said, as the pick and roll handler, driving kicks, driving dumps. He does it in transition. He's got great chemistry with Sabonis. He's a natural playmaker. He really is. And he's a great passer. He's a combo guard, and I think he kind of came in, with Charlotte, people just thought of him as like that high scoring two guard microwave kind of archetype. And he's a lot more than that. And that's, I think, a big part of his candidacy. And Sacramento's not as good as like a couple of the teams we're going to talk about, like the Clippers, for instance, Minnesota. Like they're not quite there, but they're 37-27 in a really tough West. Like I think they have exceeded the threshold of like what we're looking at with these guys in this award. So that's not too much of a concern for me, but yeah, he's a guy that can just give you big games. Like I was looking at it. He's got 23 games of 20-plus points off the bench this season. No other player in the NBA has more than 14. I think Jordan Clarkson's second with 14. And Monk's done it 23 times. And then he had that crazy 39-point game we've referenced a couple times. He had 37 earlier in the season against Orlando. And so, like, just that ability, I think he had 40 at least once, maybe twice last season. That ability to just explode like that off the bench. Like, there's not too many guys that can do that. You mentioned his assist rate. That is tops among qualified bench players in the league this year, that 29.1%. And his 5.3 assists per game is second among all bench players in the league, behind another guy I might mention later on, maybe as an honorable mention. So you couple that with the scoring that he brings, the athleticism that he brings, the energy, just like the lack of fear, like in big moments. Yeah. When you factor it all together, like, there's just not a lot of guys that can offer what he brings off the bench. And he's really valuable. And, like, his presence in Sacramento has coincided with their success, obviously, like their return to the playoffs and probably again this season. That's not all him, but I do think he's a big part of it. And I wanted him to win it last year. I hope he wins it this year. Like, he's my guy for this award.
I'm glad I get to go last on this, because I was having a conversation about Malik Monk, I think like a week or so ago, with somebody else, just for fun on my own time. And we were kind of discussing the evolution of Malik Monk, because I just find him to be a fascinating player and also a great case study in the importance of actually developing your youth and giving the keys to someone once they start earning it. You set goals and guidelines for them, and then slowly let them feel that it's achievable. And as they achieve it, you give them more and more responsibilities and ownership of the offense. And I think Malik Monk is the perfect candidate. In Charlotte, I remember watching him early on, and there was always a feeling like he was drafted by the GM, but the coaches didn't really trust him. Part of that was because he was so scrawny at that point. He just couldn't generate efficient shots within the arc. It was really tough for him physically to be able to hang with the bigger guys and to kind of deserve those reps, actually, over Devontae Graham, who was much more polished at that time. And defensively, I mean, he was just poor. He was just a really poor defender. The Hornets would consistently get outscored by heavy margins when he was on the court. It didn't seem like he was improving defensively, and he didn't seem to work really well with the coaching staff either. It seemed like they didn't really like him, and he would get angry at them. On top of that, he ended up getting suspended for, I think, the starting point of one of the seasons there, and that just completely torpedoed what was left of that relationship. So it really did take for him to go to the Lakers on that. Was it a minimum? Does anyone remember here? Was it like a minimum?
Yeah.
I think it was like a 2.
Yeah, I think it was a minimum. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a minimum. And he went to the Lakers and kind of rebuilt himself from there. And then to watch the next step in his evolution with Mike Brown, because Mike Brown demands a certain level of defense that even the Lakers coaching staff didn't demand of him. So he has improved his defense. I wouldn't call him a good defender, but the effort he's giving is much more consistent than it's ever been in his career. And on top of that, over time, I think he's learned that to be that 3-level scorer that he's capable of, he has to improve his vision. With the Hornets, he didn't really have much vision at all. Whenever he would get the ball, it was kind of like he was in that Cam Thomas phase. We were talking about Cam Thomas last episode. Just shoot. Playmaking, whatever. If someone's open, I guess maybe I'll hit it. Maybe I'll hit a roll man every once in a while. But for the most part, it was just shoot. But to have Sabonis with you on the court, and then to have Mike Brown kind of give you more ownership and kind of coax you into playmaking and saying, hey, here's the read, pass it to Sabonis, he'll give it right back, to kind of feel like, oh, I have a big man who I can trust. I can give him the ball and he will pitcher it back to me and I'll get another opportunity to score. So it kind of builds more trust and relationship with other players on that team. I just think it's unlocked everything for him. Anytime I watch him, he has such great synergy with Sabonis, and they're a match made in heaven. Because if Monk has any one weakness, other than defense, offensively at least, I would still say it might be a bit of his playmaking. And if Sabonis has any one weakness right now, I would probably say he can't go get his own shot from the perimeter, the same as someone like Sengun or Jokic can. So I think having those two partner with each other, you can see the synergy on the court. Monk is so explosive. Unlike even Norman Powell, I consider him a pure 3-level scorer. There's a certain level of explosiveness that he has vertically that Tim Hardaway Jr., Karis LeVert, and Norman Powell don't really have. We'll get to some of those guys later. he has that vertical explosiveness that makes him a much better rim finisher. From the mid range, I like his game a little bit more right now than Norman Powell's. And then from the three, I mean, he's been shooting 43% from the corners as well, so not too shabby. I just think it's the perfect synergy of team, player, defensive buy-in. It's everything coalescing at once.